Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday. Welcome into the best damn pod in the land. Chad Stryker with me is Dan Divjak. As always, Dan, I'm in that state up north. However, I'm at a beautiful spring-fed lake in a cottage, and I can't really complain too much because I'm actually on vacation. So, how about you?
I'm jealous, number one, but I'm doing good, man. Just
Yeah.
amused by Twitter world yesterday and getting ready to head out tomorrow. I'm going to be driving up to Columbus for the 4 practices that are open and want to see a few things and just kind of take it all in.
Perfect. Yeah. So, guys, speaking of the 4 practices, so number one, don't forget to subscribe. We are doing our Blitz to 500 for our first 500 subscribers. We'll do a randomizer. You'll get a $50 gift card. And then the other thing is for the practices. When you guys normally look for us on Friday, we're going to be dropping content after the Friday practice, so it'll pop up Saturday morning. Dan will have had the first couple practices. We'll have his notes, and we'll be able to give you what we see and hear. So Dan, thank you for making the drive since I'm in another state, but you live in another state.
It's very true.
Yeah. I don't know. All right. So we'll dig into the meat of things, man. So you had a great post on Twitter, and I mentioned, we were talking before we got on a show, that Chris Bayless is the one that dropped this information about Michigan on thewolverine.com. I put absolutely no stock in Chris Bayless. You know that. I know that. But I think maybe just hammer it out for the folks that don't know how NOAs work.
Yeah. So first, the post from Chris Bayless, who I was not familiar with, and now I've seen enough comments from his own fan base that he's not very well liked. It's unfortunate that they've got a guy like him and Scam Webb that they have to deal with. But you know, their whole beat has been completely behind on this whole topic. But anyways, he throws out a tweet that says that an NOA is imminent, and then he went on to say about, you know, a few things about what we're going to be in it in regards to Connor Stallions and lack of cooperation and show causes, and that there was one coach who's still on the staff, which this one's interesting. One coach still on the staff who apparently deleted text messages between himself and Connor Stallions. But then he took it further to say what the sanctions were going to be. And he suggested that there was no vacation of wins and that there'd be a 1, maybe 2-year postseason ban. And, you know, essentially, you know, chalked it up to be a slap on the wrist, which a postseason ban is anything but that. But here's the deal. It's all complete malarkey. It's nonsense. Do I think an NOA is imminent? I do think that they're trying to, you know, process this quicker than other cases that they've had. I had somebody comment, and rightfully so, you know, that said, hey, listen, you know, they just finally ruled on the 2020 recruiting issue, but they've been handling this thing with warp speed. So do I think an NOA is pending? I think so. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw it much sooner than we're used to. I do think I don't think the timing of that Netflix special at the end of August was coincidental. I can't see that getting released prior to an NOA, which it just would not be a good look for Michigan. But with that being said, NOAs do not outline or levy any sort of sanctions or punishment whatsoever. And that's the key to all of this. So this guy's saying an NOA is imminent, and oh, by the way, I heard that this is what the punishment's going to be. He's full of it. It's absolute nonsense. There are no punishments. There are no sanctions. There are no anything in relation to penalties referenced in an NOA. An NOA is an issuance of the findings of the investigation from the NCAA to the then the institution, the school, in this case, Michigan, would have 90 days, up to 90 days to reply. Okay. And then the NCAA has 30 to 60 days to reply, to respond to that and issue their sanctions at that point. I'm not positive if they have to issue the sanctions within 30 to 60 days or if they just have to reply to the reply. But regardless, they don't issue any sort of sanctions or penalties or anything until after that process plays out. So for him to suggest that, you know, he got wind of what the sanctions are going to be, it's all nonsense. it was nothing but clickbait, and here we are talking about it. And I posted about it, but so mission accomplished. Good for him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that everybody like up and ran with this, and I commented on probably a dozen of them. Like, yo, like there's no substance to this. And then people took it the wrong way, as if to say I was saying, "Oh, well, nothing's going to happen to them." No, that's not what I'm saying. There's no substance to the article. Period. There just isn't. And so the people that ran with it, I'm sorry. I was shocked that 11 Warriors did. I held them in a little higher regard than that, but it's also slow media season until the practice kicks off in a couple days. So everybody's got to have something to talk about. So I guess they're talking about that. But here we are doing the same thing. But I thought it was important that people understood the NOA process. I don't know.
Right. And to give you some perspective, it hasn't been mentioned on any media outlet, like respectable media outlet whatsoever. Fox hasn't mentioned anything. CBS hasn't mentioned anything. ESPN, I guess they're still respectable, hasn't mentioned anything. It's just nonsense. Now, I mean, I do have my theory as to what's going to happen. I mean, I can postulate as to what I think is going to happen. I mean,
why not?
I do the idea that there will not be any wins vacated is laughable to me. It's going to happen. I mean, they have vacated wins for recruiting violations in the past. So on-field cheating that impacts the outcome of the game, they will not, and I'm going to take it a step further. The only way they will not vacate wins if they actually choose to make them forfeit wins, which there's an important distinction between the two, right? A vacating of a win means they just take the win away from their record, right? If they make them forfeit, which is not unprecedented, it's rare, but not unprecedented. If they make them forfeit, not only do they take the win off their record, but they assign them a loss and give a win to their opponent, which literally changes everything. And I would not be shocked if they don't take that route in this case. And I think it's at least 2021 and 2022 season. I don't see how they don't do one of those two things with those seasons. And then it gets sticky with 23, right? If they vacate 21 and 22 or forfeit, how do they not do that for the games up to the point that they got caught in 23? And then if they do that for those games, then the argument becomes, well, if they had done that during the season, which they're now allowed to do, by the way, with a new bylaw that they passed, they wouldn't have been qualified for the playoff. I don't, that's where it gets really sticky. So one of those two things will happen: vacation of wins, forfeiture of wins. I believe there will be show causes. That's obvious. And then I do believe there will be a postseason ban. If I was sitting in that room, the postseason ban would be for as long as you can confirm they cheated. So in this case, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. So I was surprised.
And, I think there'll be recruiting and scholarship restrictions as well. They're going to get hammered.
Yeah, absolutely. I was curious to see. I was shocked that they said 1 year, maybe 2 years, because Ohio State with the tattoo gate, we got a year postseason ban. So like that, I don't know. It doesn't make too much sense to me. But all right, that's enough about Michigan. I already got yelled at. I was on a boat ride and somebody yelled "Go Blue" at me, and I just shook my head. I didn't even bother. So we'll get into actual Ohio State topics.
What's I just think it's so odd they have the same motto as the Smurfs.
Yeah, Go Blue. So we're gonna do 2024 hot takes. Dan and I are, and so number one, Dan, I'm gonna give you two right off the bat. Who leads the team in tackles, and then who leads the team in catches? Tackles and catches.
Tackles, I'm going to be the master of the obvious today, I think. I'm going to go with Cody Simon.
Okay.
And catches, I'm going to go with Emeka because I think they're going to make sure he gets that right.
Okay, that works. So Cody Simon, good pick. That's what I was leaning. I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go, but I ended up at Lathan Ransom. So for tackles. And then thinking about receiving, I 100% agree it's going to be Emeka Egbuka. So no shock there.
Yeah. The you know the old saying, if your safety is leading your team in tackles, you have a problem. Now, I think our scheme actually allows for that to be more likely, than not. But I'll go with one of the linebackers.
Yeah.
I think Cody's going to be on the field the majority of the time, and I think he's closest to the line of scrimmage.
Well, I don't disagree with you about Cody Simon. I just think the way that Knowles runs his defense and being a safety-driven defense, and the way Lathan Ransom comes downhill, and then adding Caleb Downs, and you have Jordan Hancock at the nickel safety, I just think there's a higher probability that he uses that bandit position more than we've ever seen in a way that is an enforcer at the line of scrimmage. But that's like if I didn't pick him, it would have been Cody.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Yep. Not a crazy thing. So I got one that stirs the pot for everybody. Will G. Scott start at tight end?
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, with all the talk come out of camp about the offseason he's had, and with him being a leader on the team, and him having been number 2 last year, and I'm going to say yes. I mean, does that bode well for us? I guess it's going to depend on what we're asking the tight end to do this year, right? Like, we need to see improvement in blocking from that position across the board.
Okay. So I think
but one thing about G. Scott, one thing about G. Scott that I don't think people really recognize, he's got incredible hands.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a 5-star receiver coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
He's got really, really good hands. So don't be shocked if there aren't some oh my moments during the year with him.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. I think he'll be one of the 2 tight ends. I just wonder if we have a Ruckert and Farrell situation here. So is G. Scott going to be your pass catching tight end, and you're going to have Will Kazmarek as your blocking tight end? And I'm also curious to see how they use Demarion Witten. But it was just one of those things. Like, every time you see somebody speak about G. Scott, they always talk about how great a family they have and how nice of a kid he is. But like, making that transition from wide receiver, we saw Cade Stover struggle on the kickout blocks. We saw Cade Stover struggle in the open field making blocks. And I love Cade Stover, but he was a converted linebacker. So now you have a converted wide receiver. Now, I know Brian Hartline coaches his kids at wide receiver to block. So I'm not like taking anything away from that. But it's
does he?
Well, supposedly. So
we didn't see it last year.
No. The wide receiver game has changed, though, under Ryan Day from 2019 to now. I feel like that was like, they used to say it was an extension of the run game, and now we don't see that anymore as much. So, but I don't know. It was just a thought. If we're talking about hot takes, that's a hot take for me is, G. Scott could possibly not be, a starter.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. I think there's a misconception out there that Kazmarek was brought over to be a blocking tight end when he was really a pass-catching tight end at Ohio. And then you mentioned Demarion Witten. He's going to be starting in the receiver room.
Oh yeah, I did forget about that.
So he's not even starting in the tight end room. He'll be with the receivers. That kid's a freak. There's a clip that was making its rounds this past week of him at a camp, an Ohio State camp. I want to say it was last summer, where he broke Trey McNutt's ankles.
I saw it
on a route. I mean, I didn't realize that kid had that kind of athletic ability.
Yeah, what was that?
Like, I've heard he was a freak.
Yeah. I think it was a deep out, wasn't it? Like, he faked inside and cut outside, and Trey McNutt fell and went and was wide open. Yeah.
Yeah, he cut his route off and posted up on him.
Yeah. All right, let's get into this one, Dan. The famous who will anyone, and who of those anyone will get a tree in Buckeye Grove this year by the end of the season?
And remind me again, it's any All-American team, first, second, or third?
No, I think it's first team
consensus.
I think we ended up learning last year, isn't it? Consensus All American because it was just Marv, right?
Yeah, I've got to. Okay, I mean, if we're going to assume consensus All American, first team or any team?
First team.
That one's tough, man. Because, I mean,
I only had one.
Who do you got?
Caleb Downs.
Yeah. He wasn't first team last year, and the guys that were first team last year are still coming back. He's not first team going preseason.
I understand that. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So that's why I was hesitating. I mean, if it's first team only and it's consensus, that's hard to do. I don't know. I'll go Donovan Jackson.
Okay, and then we can branch off from there. So let's go first, second, and third team across the board on offense first.
So first, second, or third team All American on offense.
Yeah. Not all Big Ten, all American.
I'm going to go, right. I'm going to go, obviously, Donovan Jackson, Josh Simmons. I think Q will be up there. And then here, I'm going to go Emeka and JJ.
Okay. So I was going to go
on
first,
second, or third team All American team.
That makes sense. I was going to go Emeka, then Josh Simmons, Seth MacFarlane, and then Quinshon Judkins, and that was it.
Okay.
I mean, I thought Donnie might end up on the second team.
He's
it's
preseason.
Yeah, it's hard.
He's preseason first team.
Yeah. Let's go defense because I have way more on defense.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We're going to sound like homers on this. All right, I'll go first. I'll start. I'll start up front. I think Jack and Tyleek will show up on there. I think Cody's going to show up on one of the first three teams, and then in the secondary, I think we're going to see Denzel and Caleb.
I could see that.
I want to say more, but it would sound like a total homer take.
Well, I think Tyleek Williams 100%, Jack Sawyer 100%, Denzel Burke 100%. Caleb Downs, yes, absolutely. And I think a sneaky second team pick would be Davison Igbinosun. So that kind of rounds out where I thought we would be. I just don't know. I don't know what I don't know with Cody Simon yet until we see him. But would it surprise me playing for Ohio State and the amount of national games we get and the amount of media attention we get that he doesn't end up on one of the first three teams? No, it wouldn't shock. All right.
A lot of candidates.
There is. Yeah. Well, obviously you've heard Urban and Jim Tressel say this is the most talent they've seen in a building. Whether or not that's good or bad, I don't know. But hopefully it's good. So the other topic I had for us, Dan, is to be fun. The 6 freshmen you expect to get the most snaps this year. Could be on either side of the ball. You just lump them all together.
What about special teams?
Just offense, defense.
Okay. Am I going first? I'll go first.
Okay.
All right. So, I mean, the obvious one is JJ. I think James Peoples, Aaron Scott, and then I'm gonna put in. Is it Sam Williams-Dixon?
Sam Williams-Dixon, yeah.
The other running back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw him in there, and then my 6th person is where it gets a little muddy. If we're not doing special teams, I'm not gonna go Mylan Graham. I think Mylan Graham should be our punt returner. I'm gonna go Ian Moore. I think Ian Moore is gonna end up being in the 2 deep on the offensive line.
Okay. All right. So we differ a little bit. So I'm not. This is in no particular order, but James Peoples because he's going to be the number 3 back. Sam Williams-Dixon's going to get some run because he has to. Julian Sayans going to play late in some of those games that we're way ahead, and I think he's going to get. I think Ryan's going to start working with him quite a bit, and then I'll go. Let's see on defense. Aaron Scott was one I had kind of ferreted out. Mylan Graham was another because I think he's going to get some run late in games to see what they've got, and then Jeremiah Smith.
Okay.
I mean, it's tough. It's tough to.
Houston in there, huh?
I don't. I think they're too deep on the defensive line as far as total number of snaps.
Yeah. Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it brings up a serious topic about rotating these guys and getting them experience on the field. It has to happen this year. It has to, or it's going to start hurting us on the recruiting trail if our freshmen don't get on the field, especially if we're blowing teams out.
Yeah, that was kind of the point of my. Yeah, we definitely don't want it to impact us on a recruiting trail down. You're right. It will at some point. It'll rear its ugly head. They're gonna, and Bama has used it in the past. Well, you're not going to play right away up there. We can get you on the field tomorrow.
Yep, for sure.
All right. So I want to do this. I thought it would be fun. This is my own weird brain doing this. Who is the most underappreciated player on both sides of the football going into the season? Who do you think is like everybody's missed this? Nobody's talking about it, but this person is going to be a linchpin, even if the media, nobody else cares. The team cares, and they are very much underappreciated.
All right. So on offense, I've got Josh Simmons. I think that with him coming in last summer and then with the reputation he had of being heavily penalized, I think he was under a microscope. I think he got better, significantly better throughout the year and the offseason that he's had and what he's done to his body. And he's a left tackle. On the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be a reoccurring theme for today, but I'm going to go Cody Simon. He's going to have the green dot. He's going to be the one that's calling the defenses. He's going to be stepping into a full-time role for the first time in his career. And I think our secondary and our defensive line have got all the accolades so far. I think that linebacker unit is going to, if they are allowed to eat, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people and be one of the best in the country when the dust settles, and I think he'll be the leader of that room.
I like it. I like it a lot. So I was going to say Seth McLaughlin on offense, even though they talked about him a lot when he transferred in. I don't know how much bigger or more important you kind of get than the center. And then I'm going to go on a complete inverse on the opposite side of the ball and say Ty Hamilton. Because you need somebody with Tyleik Williams, because Tyleik will draw some double teams. Jack's going to draw double teams. JT Tuimoloau is going to draw double teams. So Ty Hamilton has to eat this year. And he has to be a run stuffer. Just my opinion. Like, I had that question loaded. I've been waiting all week. That was my favorite question that I put together. So, yeah, McLaughlin and Ty Hamilton. All right, cool. Two positions not at quarterback where there's the most pressure of the talent behind them, one offense, one defense. So, obviously, we've talked so much about Will Howard and Devin Brown, and everybody talks about the quarterback. But what other position is somebody just pushing so hard behind them that there is pressure to perform or you're not going to be on the field?
Yeah. Well, on the offensive side of the ball, that's a really hard question because the big concern is the offensive line in depth. So is anybody really pushing to unseat, Josh or Donnie? No. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's pushing to unseat Josh Fryer on the other side, no matter how people feel about him. I just don't think there is. I would probably say whoever gets the starting job at right guard will have pressure to perform because I think it's going to be a close race. So that's what I'm going to go with is the right guard. I don't have a name for you because I don't know who it's going to be yet. Mm-hmm. If I had to make the call today, I think it's going to be Hinsman. But I think the chemistry between him and Seth, from what I heard in the spring, is really, really good, and that's important. I think that hurt us last year. Ironically, because it was Hinsman at center and he was learning on the fly. On the defensive side of the ball, I think you gave a nice segue. I think it's Ty Hamilton, right? Because I think all the other positions are solidified. I think Sonny's going to start over CJ. I don't know if CJ's actually going to apply pressure to Sonny. I think if CJ for some reason got the starting gig, then he would be the one I would pick. But all the other positions are solidified so much that I think Ty Hamilton's the one that's got to step up and probably has the most pressure of there being a deep rotation at his position.
That's fair enough. I don't disagree with you on either one. So the only question I had was, is Tegra actually pushing for the right tackle spot, or are they just going to resign him to guard this year, and it's going to be him versus Hinsman, and that's just where we are. So I, much like you, I don't have a name. It was the right guard spot, and then much like you, the reason I talked about Ty Hamilton previously was like that's the position where, like, if he's not performing, we've got guys that can and will, and so he either has a monster year this year or he's going to see a lot of time on the sidelines. Cool. Man, Dan, you and I never agree this much. This is weird.
I think we agree more than you give us credit for.
Okay. Maybe. All right, so Dan, I know.
I guess we're gonna disagree about that.
I don't know. Maybe sometimes I try to look.
So maybe you're right.
Yeah, I think sometimes I try to be. I don't know. Sometimes I think I try to outsmart myself. I'll say it that way, where I'm looking for like the needle in the haystack, and just to be different. Sometimes, because I always tease you about. Jaden Ballard and that kind of stuff. So I have a little fun with that. So as promised, we continue our series on.
Hey,
go ahead. Sorry.
Speaking about that, newsflash. Ryan Day said Jaden Ballard needs to step it up.
Yeah. Okay. We hear that every year, though, don't we, Dan?
That's my point. You're starting to catch on.
Yeah. So as promised, we're going to do the Rutgers football schedule. So we've done Wisconsin and Nebraska. We continue our series. And you guys, if you've been listening, I'm pretty bullish on Rutgers this year. I think they have a chance because they don't play any of the big time guys except for USC. So they avoid Penn State, they avoid Michigan, they avoid us, and they avoid the Nike team in Oregon. That seems to be losing recruits left and right. So
and Iowa.
And Iowa. Yeah. So we have. I'm going to pull this up.
They do not play the top 5 preseason rated teams in the Big Ten.
All right, Dan. Here we go. I'm interested to see how much we differ on this. So I'm going to just do the first two because I say win and win against Howard and Akron. What about you?
I mean, yeah, those are both wins.
Okay. I'll let you go first. At Virginia Tech.
This is probably their toughest game on the schedule. Virginia Tech is a sexy dark horse pick for the ACC. It's at Virginia Tech. I could see that being a night game. I'm going to say Rutgers gets tripped up in that game. I'm going to give them a loss in that game.
Okay. So this is a twofold answer. Number one, if it is not a night game, Rutgers wins. If they have to play in Blacksburg at night with that crazy ruckus, fantastic crowd, by the way. I love that stadium. They lose. So, but right now I have them winning because I don't know if it's a night game. Whatever you think. Yeah. So Washington, okay. What do you got? Washington.
I'm going to give them a win. It's a Friday night game, so Washington will be. I'm assuming I don't have Washington's schedule in front of me. I'm assuming they play the week before, so they're going to be traveling across the country on a short week. I'm going to go Rutgers. Night game. I'm sure there'll be a great atmosphere. Especially if they beat Virginia Tech the week before. But regardless, Friday night game, early in the season, I'm going to go Rutgers.
Yep, I have Rutgers as well. And then I think last week we already know the answer to this, but they go to Nebraska. So they leave Piscataway, possibly being 4-0, heading to Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I think you had Nebraska winning this one, right?
I think so. Yeah, so I guess I've got to stick with Nebraska there, right?
Well, I mean, you can always change because I have Rutgers winning that one close. Close.
Yeah, I had Nebraska pulling that out. I had Nebraska. I got to stick with Nebraska. I had Nebraska undefeated when they play us.
Yeah. All right, and then they get Wisconsin at home in Piscataway, which will probably, looking at the date, end up being a big noon kickoff if Rutgers comes in undefeated.
Yeah, and I can't remember what I said when we went over Wisconsin's schedule. I'm going to assume I said Rutgers was winning that game.
Yeah, we both had Rutgers winning that game. All right, so UCLA, apparently, according to Deshaun Foster, they're one of two teams in LA, and we don't know much about them. So they got to fly across the country. Probably going to be a night game, and just for no other reason than the TV ratings. So they're coming to Piscataway. Who you got?
I got Rutgers in that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Then they move. Then Rutgers leaves the friendly confines of SHI Stadium, and they fly across the country, which we've talked about a lot, to USC, and I have them losing in a rather high-scoring affair.
Yeah. Is Rutgers Stadium that bad? Why are you dissing it like that? SHI, what's wrong with their stadium?
Nothing. That's the name of the stadium.
Oh, okay. I thought you just left the T off. My bad.
No.
Yeah, I'm just playing with you. Yeah, the USC game, it'll be interesting. If USC, first of all, there is no home field advantage at USC, even if it's a Friday night game.
Okay.
It's not like that stadium's going to be full. That game is going to depend on what happens with USC the first half of the season. If their defense is no better than it's been, then I think that team's going to implode. What did you say? You have them losing a high-scoring affair?
Yeah, I do. I have them. So I have them losing against USC in kind of a shootout fashion, maybe even overtime, but like in the 40s.
I'm gonna go with them winning against USC.
Whew.
I got faith in Craig Schiano's defense.
All right. So then they go home against Minnesota. They get a bye after that, so they travel home. They get a bye week. And they get Minnesota coming to town rowing their boats with the impressive, depending on who you talk to, PJ Fleck from Media Days. So I have them winning that one, going away pretty easily.
Agreed. I've got them running the table for the last four, actually.
Okay. I don't. I have them losing to Illinois. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where my 10-2 comes in.
You said they were going to win 10 games.
Yeah, I have them 10-2. So I have them losing to USC, and then I have them losing to Illinois because right now I have them beating Virginia Tech.
Right. Okay, so I had them losing to Virginia Tech. I've got them losing to Nebraska. Well, hell, I guess I'm the one that's got them with 10 wins.
Not so crazy now, am I, Dano?
Dude, I mean, if you think of, their schedule, we've already talked about the fact that they don't have the top 5 preseason teams in the Big Ten. They've also got 2 West Coast teams having to come to them. You know, they're only, their 2 toughest tests, and they got to go to Nebraska if Nebraska's who we think they are, and I've got them losing that game. They have an incredibly favorable schedule, and I think Schiano's a great coach, man.
I agree with you.
The other thing is that I don't think people realize Rutgers, they very well could have a top 10 defense by the end of the year. They might have been top 10 last year.
They were definitely top 25.
So, yeah. And then didn't they get a stud transfer quarterback from somewhere?
I know they got a transfer. I don't know. I would call him a stud, but like he's a better player than what they had. Besides Tua's little brother.
Yeah. What they do have is arguably, some people will argue that they've got the best running back in the Big Ten, and I know that's a hard thing to say when you look at Trey and Q, but that running back, I mean, he tore us up last year.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you could have a top 15 Rutgers team, and depending on how things like play out in the Big Ten, because Oregon's got to play us, they've got to play Michigan, we've got to play Michigan, we've got to, like, everybody's playing everybody. You could have a Rutgers team that sneaks in to the playoff at 10-2. You know, depending on how things shake out. If you have a 9-3 Oregon team, it could get really squirrely.
Yeah. I think their strength of schedule comes into play then.
Fair enough. All right, Dan, I'm going to hand this over to you.
That's crazy. Uh-oh.
Well, no, you wanted to speak on Ross Bjork's vision for the stadium. And if you don't want to do it today, we can tag it into our release for Saturday morning. Because I'm on vacation. You guys can't tell I'm working off my cell phone internet, and I have like 3G, so I'm doing the best I can, and it's running my laptop currently. So, but Dan, I haven't seen the pictures, but I know that you were really excited about it. So I can hand it over to you, and then we can finish up the show.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think Ross Bjork is a silent assassin. And I think he's very calculated in what he does. I think he has a vision as to what he wants our facilities to look like, especially for football. And I think he was very strategic in posting some pictures that he posted of his tour of Ohio Stadium the other day. And if you haven't seen them, go to Ross Bjork's Twitter profile, and he's got two consecutive posts that show some pictures of the stadium, and some of them are just incredibly unflattering pictures of, you know, the condition of the stadium. So I think he was very deliberate in why he posted those pictures, and I think he's going to get us what we need. He's not going to cut any corners. And he's going to raise the money that we need and get the people on board to do what we need to give us the absolute best facilities. And then on the heels of that, you know, the team up north posted some pictures of some upgrades they did to their facility. And it looked pretty good. It was a little dark for me. I like something that's a little bit more airy and bright. But it was cool nonetheless. Like, they had some really cool features in there. But he's not going to take a back seat to anybody.
Well, you know, maybe
we can share those pictures on Friday.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. Maybe Michigan's just preparing for the death penalty. And so everything needs to be dark. And because they know they're going to be dead and buried for the next 10 years.
You're really trying to drive those comments up, aren't you?
No, I wouldn't do that. Oregon sucks. Michigan sucks. We're the best. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Dan is doing me a huge favor again in traveling to Columbus to watch the practices this week. He's also going to have a special guest appearance. Dan, is it okay to tell him?
Yeah, I mean, it's tentative, but I think it's going to happen. Go ahead.
Okay. So Dan O is going to be doing a guest appearance on Menace to Sports. So we're excited. I'm excited for Dan. Like, he puts in a lot of work behind the scenes that no one sees. And so that we have the content that we have. So it'll be good. It'll be great. And we're excited to also have actual practice, actual football, actual content, and things that we can see with our very own eyes. So, you know, hang with us. We'll be back on Saturday after the practice schedule finishes up. Dan, any final words, man?
No, man, I'm just excited to get to the practices. I mean, obviously, one of the things I'm going to be looking at closely is how are they rolling the quarterbacks. I think Ryan came out, and I don't expect him to show anything that's going to allow for conclusions to be made after, these first 4 open practices. He's more or less said he's going to roll them evenly like they did in the spring. But it is going to be interesting to see, because one of the controversies coming out of the spring is that, from all reports were that Devin rolled with the ones in every single drill, every single team session. He always went first. They split reps amongst themselves with the ones, but Devin always went first. And then they rolled Will out first in the spring game. And then, there was also word that Will struggled a little bit, which is probably not surprising. New system, new offense, what have you. So it'll be interesting to see how they roll those guys out those first 4 days. And then I want to look at, how Devin does in regards to his presence and his awareness. I want to see how he's handling the short game, and then, I want to see how Will's handling those, that deep ball game outside the numbers.
I'm interested to hear what you have to say, and hopefully you can grab me some snapshots so I can see kind of for myself. So, but yeah, so Dan will be doing that all week. We are excited to bring you that content. I appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to subscribe, be part of that Blitz to 500, because everybody likes gift cards to Buckeye Corner. You guys, so I'm going to continue my OH, because tonight is at family night. It is college night. So you know what I'm repping in the state up north. So we'll see. I'll count how many Go Blues I get tonight for you. And until Saturday, you guys stay safe, enjoy your week, and as always, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.